Hey guys and girls, Board Now back with you for the Vigil Finale review, so full spoilers as always. And I tell you what, when we had the cliffhanger, then the Russian spy stuck Amy in the bloody torpedo chute, I kind of expected it to be resolved quite early in the episode, but boy was I in for a shock because Amy actually spends about half of this finale in the torpedo chute, so it was an easy day's work for Soraya Jones, who I have to say does sell it really well. But this show being this show, they did the sort of tedious thing of having her have all these flashbacks as she's in it, and it teases then the second in command might find her at one point. The Russian spy is kind of coming up with excuses, saying, oh, well, she went to get washed. And then he has to go back to his duty, so he's sweating a little bit. So Soraya Jones does a good job, but it's kind of like they spend too much time on it and backs. And there's this sort of convoluted thing where she remembers a scene with her and Kirsten from the past where she taught her Morse code or something, and that becomes her inspiration for using Morse code in this episode. It's like tapping frantically on this thing, doing kind of Morse code, and it sort of picks up on the speaker like in banging, and it's not even like they can make out what the banging is, but I guess that's part Amy's point, maybe just to get attention, but I don't know how the Morse code fits. But they clearly couldn't read Morse code. They could just make out it was banging. It seemed to be coming from that direction, so someone may be in danger, someone might be trapped somewhere. So you just get this dialogue between them. It's banging, or where's that coming from, sort of thing. So yeah, they do spend far too long with Amy in the torpedo chute. Matthew realizes then his cover could be blown, leak in like the ship, and he comes up with this excuse. It's sort of another funny scene where, because he's on duty at the time, and he says, I need to go, and it's like, well, after your shift, Matthew. And then he comes up with an excuse that he's ill, and he just does this like sort of fake sort of illness in front of him, and like the officer's like, oh yeah, go, shit, get that stuff away from me. But it's like, okay, I mean, I guess good acting on the spot from the spy, which sort of makes sense, but it's like, okay, was that really convincing? That seems a little bit convenient, but was to force Vigil to like go to the surface so that they can be like intercepted by the Russians who are waiting. But this escalates because of the stuff with Amy, and things are all getting a bit desperate. And to be honest, it's a bit anticlimactic because the number two later on just happens to come across Amy anyway at like a crucial moment right before she dies, because of course this being drama on TV. But anyway, the most entertaining stuff in this might be the over-the-topness of the when the ship is sinking and they're getting all frantic and they're talking about oxygen. By the way, the coxswain is almost at death's door as well from his condition last week, so that's more drama. But yeah, this sort of stuff and the stuff with them sinking resembled something a bit like this. I'm sure you'll agree. Take a look.
It's a strain, Cat. Engines are overloading. More power.
We're superheating. 8,000 degrees. Degrees above maximum. 8.4, 8.5, 8.6. She'll blow soon.
Now, Mr. Sulu, impulse power 2.
Captain, the engines cannot take it anymore. That's a terrible Scottish accent, but you get the point. And really, I'd rather be watching Star Trek than this. But actually, the finale's a bit underwhelming. It's sort of what you might expect typically. I've not been a fan of the series as a whole, but the best moments are the high action, like dramatic sort of moments, because it sort of leads to this thing where... Because the second in command is like killed eventually, really brutally. There's a weird sort of fight scene actually with him and the Russian spy, because for some reason the second in command, I couldn't like see what he had in his hand, but it seemed to be something like duct tape. So he seemed to be like fending the Russian spy off with duct tape or something. He had a knife, and eventually he was quite brutally stabbed actually. Type trace scene between Amy and Matthew, his name is the spy, but it all leads to this, because when they get a message from land that the Russian spy's on board and who it is, then the captain like maybe unwittingly sends a bunch of them off to like go and find him, and he has this good line about arrest him if you can, but kill him if you have to, something like that. It's a good line actually. So they all go off, and actually because one of them like goes through a door as like the chase is going on, they actually cost Amy like being like kidnapped, and it becomes this thing on the bridge. I think that's the word I was looking for before. Bridge. If you don't do what I say, if you don't, you go to the surface, then I'm gonna kill Amy. And wise old captain, and we definitely get a Star Trek moment here. So he gives like this sort of signal to the crew, and what they do is that they jerk the ship with so much force that Matthew loses his balance and drops down, and they're able to arrest him. And it's the whole thing. And those scenes are the best of the episode, because that was almost like Vigil doing its own version of a Star Trek scene. So that was pretty great. It's out really, and they're just tying up sort of loose ends, and it just all goes a bit flat and a bit like melodramatic and cheesy. Then get some answers on land from all amounts to is that he says, even though he knew the guy was a Russian spy, he had no idea that he was planning on killing Jade, and he sort of claims that his whole motivation was like an anti-Trident type thing. Then he never meant it to go as far as he did, but obviously he still knew the guy was a spy. And have you seen later with Matthew when he's obviously been arrested, and he just sort of, basically it all comes down to a political vote that they're set to have on Trident, and he says that's the motivations basically. Then the Russians wanted to make Trident look bad so that the vote would go in their favour. So make of that what you will, and we get a moment of outrage from Amy. Was like, so all those people died because just for that reason. Discussion about Trident and the merits of it, and back and forth, and but obviously some people would say it's a good discussion to have on TV. I just think it could have been handled in a more subtle way. But before I won't forget the line of the episode, because officials on land they have this idea to get the Americans involved to help Vigil, and to like get them to to like fire at the Russians, and Vigil has this great line which is where he says, I'm hoping they will shit their uniform. So it's lines like that sort of make it worthwhile, and his delivery is pretty great. And then we get the predictable relationship stuff with Amy and Kirsten, which I'm not really feeling too much, to be honest, and they kind of have, they reconnect and they go and see Poppy at the end, and that's pretty much it. I'm not sure where a second series can go, but that's Vigil. That's my review of the finale. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. You can also share me out on social media. What did you think of the show overall? What did you think of the finale? Look out for more TV reviews coming up. I am going to be doing Midnight Mass, which is the new Mike Flanagan show on Netflix, the guy who did The Haunting of Hill House. I'm also going to be at least taking a look at the first episode of Y the Last Man, and look out for like horror and TV reviews coming up in October. But thanks for listening. Goodbye.